We've got the season finale for season 1 of X-Men 97 coming out in a few days. Tolerance is Extinction, part 1 and 2 are out, and we're going to get into the Easter eggs and what it means for the larger X-Men story right now. When part 1 starts, we've got Cable, who's at the site of the X-Mansion, and he's dealing with kind of getting ready to tackle Bastion, and Bastion is basically holding Magneto captive, and the mansion's been attacked, and so there's rubble everywhere, but you still have this dynamic of Cable doesn't really trust Cyclops, or he has issues around the fatherhood aspects of Cyclops, Scott Summers. So that's kind of how the episode starts, and then we have the team goes to basically the childhood home of Bastion, as they're starting to kind of weave the web of who's responsible. Initially they talk about Mr. Sinister, and then Cable says you've got a larger issue, and so we get into who Bastion is and a little bit of background around Bastion, right, as a kid. And you were right, so your theory about who Bastion was or from the comics was what they ended up.
Well, I mean, they kept
were
that
clear on, right?
Identical to what it was in the comic books. So I mean, yeah, that was ripped right out of the comics for the most part.
Yeah. So basically, he's a combination of
Master Mold and Nimrod. And
right.
they find some way to use the legacy virus from Mr. Sinister to merge themselves onto a human, and that's what Bastion is. So he's like a super cyborg, basically.
Right. And so
he hates mutants. He wants to make humans the superior species.
Yeah. And what did you think about some of the scenes when, Bastion ends up, unleashing the Sentinels, and you have, the comments about Scott or Cyclops wrecking the Blackbird, the jet again, and they basically have a Porsche come out of the jet.
Yeah, and they're super 90s. I liked it.
Yeah, that was total 90s. And then you start to have the Valerie Cooper, who is was she the UN envoy, Dr. Cooper?
Yeah, I believe so.
Tied in with the UN, but she frees Magneto.
Mm-hmm.
And so Magneto, as we see Storm return, and we see
the
Professor X return.
The Wolverine Nightcrawler scene I thought was the best scene in that show. And episode 8 is finally you got to see Wolverine do something instead of just sitting around.
Absolutely, yeah. Because that's one of the things we've talked about. Wolverine has not had a lot to do the first season. Basically,
but I think that's going to change from what we can tell.
Yeah, and so you have. They're laying the groundwork for, before Magneto returns, a difference of opinion as to how to fight this fight, right? You've got the massacre at Genosha, the genocide, so to speak, of the mutants, and you have the human element of it, and so that you could tell there's a fracture going on, and certain of the X-Men have certain opinions, but they haven't quite taken sides yet. And then you have, basically the end of the first episode is Magneto is freed, and he creates a wave to black out the Earth, right? So
massive EMP.
Magnetic pulse.
And you get to see how it affects the entire Earth. You see, Spiderman and Omega Red and Silver Samurai, all these cool cameos.
So we saw Silver Samurai,
yep.
Omega Red, which has the Omega sign on, and then we saw the Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So very quickly.
She's confirmed to be the same Spider-Man from the 90s. Cartoon.
So this leads me to believe that with the success of X-Men 97, we have to see the new take on Spider-Man, right?
I'd like that,
because that was a hugely popular
it was
animated show.
It was.
So that leads me to believe, and he looked the same too. So
yeah,
I think we're going to see that. And
I'd rather have this than their terrible live action shows. I'd rather them do like an animated universe and just do more of that.
So
by far.
Speaking of the Amazing Spider-Man, we had another Easter egg where Morph in the battle turned into
Hulk.
the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, it was great.
That was pretty cool.
Hear the Morph Smash.
Yeah, did he say Morph Smash?
He said Morph Smash.
He said Morph Smash. Yeah, that was really cool.
He's been a cameo machine all season. He's turned into Colossus, Psylocke, Archangel. I mean, he's been kind of the main source of cameos this season, which is pretty cool.
What I liked about that one was I didn't see it coming. So you're sitting
I
there
didn't see that
watching
either.
it,
I didn't expect that.
and all of a sudden you see the Incredible Hulk, and you're like, really cool scene.
Yeah.
So it just shows you that they could do a lot with Morph within the storyline.
They can do a lot with the greater Marvel universe. I mean, you had Doctor Doom showed up, and he looked like he was part of the operation that made the Sentinels eliminate mankind. It looked like Doctor Doom was in on it. So there's so many things they could do with their animated universe.
Yeah, pretty cool. So we get into the end of the first episode, and he launches the EMP, and you think, well, does this it wipes out all the Sentinels, but what's this going to do to Earth, right? It wipes out all the cities, and Professor X says, I'm going to deal with him, with Magnus, and some of them want, Wolverine wants to take him out, right?
Yeah.
And so the divide is starting to happen.
Yeah.
And then we get into episode 9, which is the penultimate episode leading into the season finale, and you have a couple of different things going on. You have Mr. Sinister playing around with Jean Grey's mind. Do you want to know where I split the two of you with Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen, and Jean Grey? And so she doesn't really quite know yet. She's still trying to figure out where the change happened because they're dealing with Nathan, a.k.a. Cable. And so there's that storyline that's kind of woven in between. And then you have the showdown. It turns into a huge fight. And one of the things that's cool, they go to Muir Island, and I want to get your thoughts. We see the original suits.
Yeah, that was cool. I like that, how they're I don't know if I would want that to be a permanent change, but it looks like they're going to dive into the X-Men lore, and they're going to wear different costumes, and I like that idea.
Did you see the joke? It could be black.
Yeah, it could be black leather,
which is that was a
callback to the movie where they made fun of the spandex
shot.
Suits.
Yeah. And
I
so
like that.
At this point in episode 9, we see Charles Xavier, Professor X face off against Magneto, and the difference in philosophy of Magneto's view of the world and never being accepted by humans, and Charles's sense of trying to gain acceptance, right? And you see Rogue and you see Roberto, a.k.a. Sunspot, join Magneto.
Yeah.
And they go off. And so you have this fight break out where they're basically, you have Mr. Sinister and Jean Grey, you have Wolverine and some of the others facing off.
Yeah, you have the gold team fighting Bastion and the blue team fighting Magneto.
So what jumped out at you? We saw Storm and Forge both wounded. Forge went down, and Storm went into the water. And you had Jean Grey fighting with Cable and Cyclops, right?
A lot of great action, a lot of great fight scenes. I guess what the most interesting part is, they're taking all these major comic arcs,
right,
and they're merging them together into their own story. So
what comics were merged?
So what's going on with the Bastion story is it's kind of a mix of the E is for Extinction and Operation Zero Tolerance. Those are the comics that's kind of pulling from. And then with what's going on with Magneto, that's the Fatal Attraction story arc. And those did not take place at the same time. Like Fatal Attraction in the comics was around 93.
Okay.
And then I want to say, I think E is for Extinction was like 96, and Operation Zero Tolerance, I think, was in like 2001. I may have those mixed up, but those were the Bastion stories.
Okay, so they combine those together.
They're combining these massive story arcs, and they've done a pretty good job where it makes sense. But
to me, it seems seamless.
Yeah, but that's not how it was in the comics. I mean, Fatal Attraction happened before Bastion even existed.
Okay.
And it looks like they're kind of mixing things up. It's probably going to lead to the Onslaught saga, which is the Bastion actually took place right after Onslaught in the comics, and Fatal Attraction was before, but it looks like they're doing both of these before the Onslaught saga.
Okay, so a couple of things happen here. So we've got Jean Grey and Cable facing off because Mr. Sinister is utilizing Cable.
Yeah, he's like hijacked them or something.
Right, his mind or whatever. So he's basically trying to take her out, and then you see Cyclops, viewing what's about to happen. What happened in that moment with Cable and Jean Grey? When the explosion happened?
It looks like he killed her, but That's probably going to be another Phoenix story.
Yeah,
I'm
Phoenix
guessing
Rising.
is what I'm guessing. There's so many different ways they could go with it. There's no doubt, and most of this will probably be for the second season. It's been renewed now for 3 seasons.
Yeah.
It's officially they're going to do 3 seasons now at least. So Onslaught's definitely coming. That's probably going to be the next big thing. I think very good chance Apocalypse is going to come back just because, the Fatal Attraction arc, Wolverine lost his animanium, which
So let's go into that. So we know Storm and Forge were wounded, or when she went in the water and he crashed. Jean Grey may be dead, at least at this point.
yeah, Storm and Forge are fine. I don't think that's going to be anything.
Yeah, they just wounded, or they were taken out. But and then we go to the battle against Magneto, and they're trying to get his helmet off, right? So Professor X can control his mind, and Wolverine, as they get the helmet off, and he's facing off with Charles, Wolverine stabs him with the claws.
Well, first of all, Professor X is about to, destroy his mind, and
Right.
Cyclops sees that they're not winning against Bastion, so he zaps Professor X,
Right.
because he knows they need Magneto
They
to
need
take
Magneto,
Bastion,
right? Yeah.
and
He questions Charles's decision. Yeah.
yeah, and in that case, Magneto, he's free, and he's just destroying everybody.
And so it ends with him turning around on
Wolverine stabs him in the back because he's got everybody at their mercy, and Wolverine sneaks up on him, stabs him in the back, and then
and then you see the
Magneto
claws retract, which means Magneto now
rips
has
the
control.
metal, and that's pretty much how it happened in the comics.
So his adamantium is ripped out of him. And you know what was cool as we start to get to wrap up here, leading up to the finale, is it was a comic book shot of
it was
Wolverine.
famous X-Men story in the early 90s.
Really, really cool.
Fatal Attraction was a great comic arc. I will say, Wolverine's like my favorite character in comics, probably my number one. And I hated the Bone Claw era of Wolverine. I was
Right.
never a fan of that. But it did lead to some good stories. I expect, he'll get his animanium back, I'm sure. Just kind of like how Storm lost her powers. They'll probably do it you'll probably see him in a few episodes.
So
But,
predictions for the finale. So first of all, will we see Gambit return?
I think you will at some point. I don't think you will this season. I think
so your prediction is we see him in season 2.
Season 2 or maybe 3, because the thing is, and they're taking things from the comics and doing their own thing.
Yeah.
But spoiler alert for those who've read the comics: Wolverine gets his animanium back from Apocalypse, becomes one of the 4 Horsemen.
Okay.
That's how he gets it back. And another story, Gambit dies and is resurrected by Apocalypse. So they could be doing something where they may
gotta
kill
bring
off
the
a couple more
yeah.
X-Men, and then eventually they become the 4
So
Horsemen.
your
of the
prediction is
Apocalypse.
Apocalypse is coming
At some point, yeah. But
Yeah.
I think they'll probably do Onslaught before they do Apocalypse.
Okay.
So
and then we've got your prediction for the finale around Magneto and Charles, the aftermath of the fight.
I think it's going to lead right into Onslaught.
Okay.
I think that's going to be kind of a cliffhanger for season 2. I think you might see Wolverine with the Bone Claws leave the X-Men, because that's what happened. He was solo for a while, so I think that could lead to some good solo stories with him next season.
I was giving it like a B+, A-, B+.
I was always giving it an A.
Yeah. Going into these last 2 weeks, I would revise that. I think it's an A. Like I really liked the animation for the last 2 episodes. I'm more excited for the finale than I was 2 weeks ago. And although I want to see more Wolverine, I loved what they did with Wolverine in episode 9, and the suit as well. The suit was different.
The brown suit,
Yeah, the
that's
brown
classic.
suit, yeah. And so I'm excited for it. I think it's the best thing. Clearly, Disney Plus has put out since day one when they launched their streaming. Give it an A. I think if you haven't been watching it, you order Disney Plus to watch the whole season next week, and then you cancel Disney Plus once you're done. But we can't speak highly enough about X-Men 97. It's been great. And hopefully you'll tune in and check it out. Let us know what you think. Did you catch any other Easter eggs or anything that you saw that maybe we didn't talk about in the last 2 episodes? Let us know your thoughts around X-Men 97. While you're doing that, smash that like button, leave us a comment, hit the notifications bell for future content, and most importantly, hit subscribe so we can continue to grow our channel and TCB.